500 Hidden Microsoft History Facts. A comprehensive journey through the untold stories of the tech giant. Introduction. Microsoft Corporation stands as one of the most influential technology companies in human history. Founded by Bill Gates and Paul Allen in 1975, the company revolutionized personal computing and shaped the digital age. While many know the broad strokes of Microsoft's story, Windows, Office, Bill Gates' wealth, there exists a treasure trove of lesser-known facts, fascinating anecdotes, and hidden details that reveal the true complexity and richness of the company's 5-decade journey. This document presents 100 hidden facts about Microsoft's history, organized thematically to provide thematic flow and topic depth. From the company's humble beginnings in Albuquerque to its current position as a trillion-dollar technology leader, these facts illuminate the decisions, innovations, failures, and personalities that made Microsoft what it is today. These are not the standard talking points found in press releases or corporate histories. Instead, they represent the fascinating details, the near misses, the forgotten products, the brilliant negotiations, the spectacular failures, and the human stories that truly define Microsoft's legacy. Part 1. The Beginning 1975 to 1985. Chapter 1. Before Microsoft. Fact 1. The name was originally hyphenated. Microsoft was originally spelled Microsoft with a hyphen when the company was founded in 1975. Paul Allen came up with the name as a portmanteau of microcomputer and software. The company officially dropped on November 26, 1976, when the company was registered with the Secretary of State of New Mexico. While Microsoft is synonymous with Redmond, Washington, the company was actually founded in Albuquerque, New Mexico, on April 4, 1975. Gates and Allen relocated there because MIT's Micro-Instrumentation and Telemetry Systems, the manufacturer of the Altair 8800, for which they had developed BASIC, was based in Albuquerque. Microsoft wouldn't move to the Seattle area until 1979 and didn't relocate to its famous Redmond campus until February 26, 1986. Fact 3. Traf-O-Data was their first business venture. Before Microsoft, Bill Gates and Paul Allen founded a company called Traf-O-Data in 1972. Venture aimed to process and analyze traffic tapes using a computer they built themselves. While Traf-O-Data was not a commercial success, it provided invaluable experience in running a business and software development. Gates and Allen recruited Paul Gilbert, a University of Washington electrical engineering student, who built the microcomputer for the venture. Fact 4. The Altair 8800 cover changed everything. In late 1974, Paul Allen was walking through Harvard Square when he saw the January 1975 issue of Popular Electronics featuring the Altair 8800 on its cover. Allen immediately bought the magazine and rushed to show it to Bill Gates at Currier House at Harvard College. They recognized this was their moment. If computers were going to go mainstream, they would need software. This single magazine cover set Microsoft's founding in motion. Fact 5. They developed BASIC without an Altair computer. When Gates called MITS to offer a BASIC interpreter for the Altair, he and Allen had neither an interpreter nor an actual Altair system. In the 8 weeks before their demonstration, they developed the interpreter from scratch with help from Monty Davidoff. Allen wrote an Altair simulator on a Harvard computer, while Gates developed the interpreter. When Allen flew to Albuquerque to demonstrate it to MITS, it worked flawlessly on the first try. Fact 6. Rick Weiland was Microsoft's first employee. Rick Weiland, a high school friend from the Lakeside Programming Group, was the first employee that Gates and Allen hired. Weiland was described as a brilliant programmer and was key to Microsoft's early success. He served as project leader for Microsoft Works and lead programmer for BASIC and COBOL language systems. Before his untimely death in 2006, Weiland became one of the nation's most powerful LGBT activists, contributing over $30 million during his lifetime and bequeathing $65 million more. Fact 7. Bill Gates wrote an open letter to hobbyists. In 1976, Bill Gates wrote a controversial open letter accusing computer hobbyists of software piracy. At the time, many hobbyists freely copied and shared software, viewing it as a community resource. Gates' letter argued that such copying prevented companies from developing quality software and was essentially theft. The letter was divisive, but established Gates' strong belief in the commercial value of software, a principle that would define Microsoft's business model. Fact 8. Steve Ballmer was employee number 30. Steve Ballmer, who would later become Microsoft's CEO, was hired in 1980 as the company's 30th employee. Gates and Ballmer had been friends at Harvard University. Ballmer left Stanford University's MBA program to join Microsoft and was the first business manager hired by Bill Gates. He would eventually become president in 1998 and CEO in January 2000. Fact 9. Gates dropped out of Harvard at age 19. Bill Gates enrolled at Harvard University but dropped out in 1975 at age 19 to focus full-time on Microsoft. At the time, he was only 19 years old, while Paul Allen was 22. Gates' parents were initially concerned about his decision to leave Harvard, but the success of Microsoft would vindicate his choice. Years later, Gates would return to Harvard to receive an honorary degree. Fact 10. Microsoft's first revenues were $16,005. In its first year of operation, 1975, Microsoft's total revenues were just $16,005. By the end of 1976, revenues had grown, but the company was still tiny. The young startup operated on shoestring budgets, with Gates and Allen often sleeping in the office. This modest beginning makes Microsoft's eventual dominance even more remarkable. Chapter 2. The IBM deal that changed everything. Fact 11. Microsoft bought QDOS for only $50,000. The operating system that would become MS-DOS started as QDOS, Quick and Dirty Operating System, developed by Tim Patterson at Seattle Computer Products. Microsoft acquired the rights to QDOS for just $50,000. Microsoft purchased though they later bought full ownership for an additional $50,000 in July 1981. This $100,000 total investment would become worth billions as MS-DOS became the dominant PC operating system. Fact 12. The IBM deal included a crucial clause. The most important aspect of Microsoft's contract with IBM wasn't the immediate payment. It was the non-exclusive clause. Microsoft specified that IBM would not have exclusive rights to MS-DOS. This allowed Microsoft to license the operating system to other computer manufacturers under the name MS-DOS. This single contractual provision enabled Microsoft to dominate the PC software industry for decades. Fact 13. IBM paid Microsoft only $430,000 total. According to Paul Allen, the November 1980 contract between IBM and Microsoft totaled only $430,000. This included $45,000 for what would become DOS, $310,000 for various 16-bit languages, BASIC, COBOL, Fortran, Pascal, and $75,000 for adaptations, testing, and consultation. IBM was expecting Microsoft to ask for more money or per-copy royalties, but Microsoft instead negotiated for the ability to sell DOS to other companies, a far more valuable long-term strategy. Fact 14. Microsoft kept the IBM deal secret. When Microsoft initially licensed QDOS from Seattle Computer Products in December 1980, they kept their IBM deal completely secret. SCP had no idea Microsoft was working with IBM, or that QDOS would become the operating system for what would become the most important personal computer in history. This secrecy allowed Microsoft to acquire the rights at a bargain price. Fact 15. Tim Patterson joined Microsoft. Tim Patterson, the creator of QDOS, left Seattle Computer Products and joined Microsoft in May 1981. His deep knowledge of the operating system he had created was invaluable as Microsoft adapted it for the IBM PC and other systems. Patterson's work was fundamental to MS-DOS's success. Fact 16. CP/M cost 6 times more than MS-DOS. When the IBM PC launched, users could choose from 3 operating systems: MS-DOS, called PC-DOS on IBM machines, CP/M-86, and the UCSD-P system. However, CP/M cost $240, while MS-DOS cost only $40. This price difference, likely due to Microsoft's non-royalty contract terms with IBM, made MS-DOS a more accessible choice, meant that MS-DOS quickly became the standard despite CP/M being the more established system. Fact 17. Jack Sams made the fateful phone call. The IBM connection began with a phone call from Jack Sams of IBM to Bill Gates in late July 1980. Sams was part of the small project team analyzing the concept for a proposed personal computer. He was in charge of software development and arranged a meeting for the very next day at Microsoft. This single phone call set in motion the deal that would make Microsoft the dominant software company. Fact 18. Microsoft didn't initially have an operating system. When IBM approached Microsoft about software for their new PC, Microsoft was already going to provide BASIC, but had no operating system of their own. Gates knew that Seattle Computer Products had developed QDOS, which was similar to the popular CP/M operating system that IBM had failed to license from Digital Research acquired it themselves. Chapter 3. Windows takes shape. Microsoft suggested QDOS to IBM as a solution. Then, Fact 19. Windows was almost called Interface Manager. Bill Gates initially wanted to call Windows Interface Manager. However, the name Windows prevailed because it best described the boxes or computing windows that were fundamental to the new graphical operating system. The computing world might have looked very different if Gates had stuck with his original preferred name. Fact 20. Windows was announced 2 years before it shipped. Microsoft first announced Windows in 1983, but the operating system didn't actually ship until November 20th, 1985. This 2-year delay between announcement and delivery became a pattern that Microsoft would repeat with other products. The delay was partly due to the technical challenges of creating a graphical user interface for the PC platform. Fact 21. Windows 1.0 was tiny, less than 1 megabyte. The original Windows 1.0 had a 16-bit color interface and was less than 1 megabyte in size. By modern standards, where operating systems occupy tens of gigabytes, this seems almost impossibly small. Windows 1.0 required a minimum of just 256 kilobytes (KB) of RAM, 2 double-sided floppy disk drives, and a graphics adapter card. Fact 22. Microsoft sent squeegees with press kits. To announce the launch of Windows 1.0, Microsoft reportedly sent out press kits that included a squeegee, window washer, and a washcloth. This playful marketing stunt emphasized the Windows theme name and showed Microsoft's early flair for creative promotion. It remains one of the more memorable product launch campaigns in tech history. Fact 23. Dave Cutler built Windows NT after leaving DEC. Dave Cutler, one of the most important but lesser-known figures in Windows history, was the chief architect and designer of Windows NT. Before joining Microsoft, Cutler had worked at Digital Equipment Corporation, DEC, where he designed the VMS operating system. Microsoft recruited Cutler to build a more robust, enterprise-grade version of Windows, which became Windows NT, new technology. Fact 24. Windows NT's similarities to VMS sparked controversy. There were allegations that Windows NT's kernel and subsystem design bore striking similarities to DEC's VMS. When DEC employees saw the similarities while working on the DEC Alpha port of NT, they reported it to management, and lawsuits were filed. The controversy highlighted the fine line between inspiration and imitation in software development. Fact 25. Windows Longhorn became a legendary disaster. Windows Longhorn, announced as the successor to Windows XP, became one of Microsoft's most troubled projects. The project suffered from severe organizational chaos, with features that weren't near completion hanging around in half-done states. Problematic that Microsoft reset the entire project. By 2004, the development was so. Longhorn eventually evolved into Windows Vista, which itself received mixed reviews when released in 2007. Fact 26. The build lab was constantly broken. During the Longhorn development, the build lab, the team responsible for compiling Windows source code into installable builds, was constantly broken. Developers would check in code that unknowingly broke other components, making it increasingly difficult to get a single build where all the major features work together without serious bugs. This chaos contributed to the eventual reset of the project. Chapter 4. Office Dominance. Fact 27. Microsoft Word first launched on MS-DOS. Microsoft Word 1.0 was first released on October 25, 1983, for MS-DOS, not Windows. Word wasn't available for Windows users until 1989. The program stood out from other writing software because of its graphical user interface and what you see is what you get, WYSIWYG, approach, which was revolutionary for the time. Fact 28. Excel was first released for Mac, not Windows. Microsoft Excel was first released for the Macintosh in 1985. The Windows version didn't come until November 1987, numbered as version 2.05 to align with the Mac version. Excel was designed to compete with the dominant Lotus 1-2-3 spreadsheet and eventually outsold it. Fact 29. Charles Simonyi supervised Word and Excel development. Charles Simonyi, a Hungarian-born developer who came from Xerox PARC, oversaw the development of two of Microsoft's most profitable products, Word and Excel. After leaving Microsoft, Simonyi started his own successful company called Intentional Software, became a space tourist with a 10-day mission to the International Space Station, and donated millions to Stanford, Oxford, the Seattle Symphony, and Seattle Public Library. Fact 30. The first Office suite had 3 applications. The first version of Microsoft Office, announced by Bill Gates on August 1, 1988, at Comdex, contained just 3 applications: Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, and Microsoft PowerPoint. The suite was officially released on October 1, 1990, for Windows, featuring Word 1.1, Excel 2.0, and PowerPoint 2.0. Fact 31. PowerPoint wasn't originally a Microsoft product. PowerPoint was originally developed by another company called Forethought Inc., not by Microsoft internally. Microsoft acquired the product and integrated it into what would become the Office suite. This acquisition proved to be remarkably successful, as PowerPoint became the standard for presentation software worldwide. Fact 32. Office became bundled to fight competition. The concept of bundling Word, Excel, and PowerPoint together as Microsoft Office was partly a competitive strategy. Individual applications from different vendors were popular, but by offering a complete Office productivity suite at an attractive bundle price, Microsoft made it difficult for competitors selling individual applications to compete. This bundling strategy became a key part of Microsoft's market dominance. Chapter 5. Going Public. Fact 33. Microsoft's IPO was March 13, 1986. Microsoft went public on March 13, 1986, with an offering price of $21 per share. This initial public offering was handled by Goldman Sachs as lead underwriter. The IPO would transform Microsoft from a private startup into a public powerhouse and make numerous employees wealthy. Fact 34. Stock jumped to $35.50 on day 1. By the end of Microsoft's first day of trading, the stock price had risen from the $21 offering price to $35.50, a gain of 69% in a single day. The IPO raised $61 million for Microsoft, dubbed the IPO of the year by many analysts. Fact 35. Bill Gates owned 45% after the IPO. 30-year-old Bill Gates retained a 45% stake in Microsoft worth $350 million, while selling $1.6 million worth of shares. This made him one of the youngest self-made wealthy individuals in America at the time. Gates' fortune would grow exponentially in the following decades as Microsoft's stock price soared. Fact 36. Gates initially wanted a lower price. At various points during the IPO process, the expected offer price changed dramatically. Bill Gates initially suggested a range of $16 to $19 per share, while underwriters were suggesting $17 to $20. Eventually, both sides compromised on a range of $20 to $22, ultimately settling on $21. Gates was concerned that investment banks might underprice the stock to benefit their institutional clients. Fact 37. The IPO almost didn't happen. Microsoft was relatively late in going public compared to other software companies. This derived partly from Bill Gates's desire to maintain control and the fact that Microsoft was not dominated by venture capitalists eager to cash out. Only one venture capitalist held a 6.2% share. No real need for capital, with pre-tax profits running as high as 34% of revenues. Fact 38. SEC registration was the real driver. Microsoft had the main reason Microsoft ultimately went public wasn't a need for capital, it was SEC regulations. Gates had been selling shares and granting stock options to talented managers and programmers. and projections indicated that by 1987, the firm would have over 500 shareholders. Once a company reaches that threshold, it must register with the SEC anyway, so Microsoft decided to do a proper IPO. Fact 39. Microsoft stock rose 100-fold in a decade. Between 1986 and 1996, Microsoft stock climbed more than 100-fold. This created thousands of millionaires among Microsoft employees who had received stock options. The wealth creation at Microsoft became legendary in the tech industry and set the model for using stock options to attract and retain talent. Fact 40. Microsoft moved to Redmond just before the IPO. Microsoft moved to its Redmond, Washington campus on February 26, 1986, just over 2 weeks before going public on March 13th. This wasn't coincidental. The move to a proper corporate headquarters was part of Microsoft's transformation into a major public company. The Redmond campus would become iconic, eventually expanding to 500 acres with 125 buildings. Part 2. Dominance and Controversy, 1986 to 2000. Chapter 6. Product Failures and Missteps. Fact 41. Microsoft Bob was one of computing's biggest flops. Released in 1995, Microsoft Bob was supposed to revolutionize computing by making it feel like navigating through rooms of a house checkbook to access different applications. Users would click on familiar objects like a desk or, instead, Bob became one of Microsoft's most spectacular failures and most embarrassing products. It was listed 7th in PC World magazine's list of the 25 worst tech products of all time. Fact 42. Bob featured a yellow smiley face and a dog. Microsoft Bob introduced users to animated assistants, including Bob himself, a big yellow smiley face, and his dog Rover. These anthropomorphic characters were meant to guide users through the interface, but they were widely criticized as annoying and overly simplistic. The product was discontinued just 1 year after launch. Fact 43. Clippy was inspired by Microsoft Bob. The infamous Clippy the paperclip assistant, which appeared in Microsoft Office starting with Office 97, was directly inspired by Microsoft Bob's approach to using animated assistants. Despite extensive research and noble intentions, Clippy quickly gained a reputation for being intrusive, presumptuous, and ultimately unhelpful. Users complained that the assistant interrupted them at the worst possible moments. Fact 44. Clippy's real name was Clippit. While everyone called him Clippy, the paperclip assistant's official name was actually Clippit. The character was turned off by default starting with Office XP in 2001 and was completely removed with Office 2007. Before being killed off, Microsoft even created a game allowing users to exact revenge by firing rubber bands and staples at Clippy. Fact 45. The Zune sold only 2 million units total. Microsoft launched the Zune portable media player in late 2006 to compete with Apple's iPod. Despite some unique features like wireless music sharing, the Zune failed to capture significant market share. By May 2008, Microsoft announced it had sold just over 2 million Zunes, roughly 1 million since the second generation launched in November 2007. The iPod, by contrast, dominated the market. Fact 46. Zune was discontinued after only 5 years. Microsoft ceased production of the Zune hardware in 2011, just 5 years after launch. The Zune marketplace continued briefly, but was replaced by Xbox Music and Xbox Video brands in 2012. Studies showed the Zune didn't even make the list of the 5 best-selling portable music players in the US. The failure was attributed to late market entry, lack of compelling features beyond the iPod, and Apple's strategic shift to smartphones with built-in music players. Fact 47. GameStop stopped selling Zune due to insufficient demand. In May 2008, GameStop announced it had decided to stop selling Microsoft's Zune players due to what it sees as insufficient demand from customers. This was a significant blow to Microsoft's Zune retail presence for the product. Microsoft's quarterly earnings filing with the SEC indicated that Zune sales had fallen $100 million from 2007 to 2008 during the fourth quarter. Fact 48. Microsoft spent $7.2 billion on Nokia Mobile. In 2013, Microsoft acquired Nokia's Mobile and Devices division for $7.2 billion. The acquisition was seen as necessary to prevent Nokia from switching from Windows to Android on its devices. However, it proved to be a colossal failure. By May 2016, Microsoft had laid off most of the 25,000 Nokia employees that had joined the company. Fact 49. Windows Phone never captured 10% market share. Despite multiple attempts and significant investment, Windows Phone failed to capture even 10% of the smartphone market. The platform suffered from a lack of apps. At launch, Windows Phone 7 had only 2,000 apps available, compared to Android's 200,000 and iOS's 300,000. Popular apps like Instagram, YouTube, and even Angry Birds were missing from the Windows Phone store. Fact 50. Windows Phone users couldn't upgrade between versions. Microsoft repeatedly made the mistake of not allowing existing users to upgrade to new versions of Windows Phone. Windows Mobile 6 users couldn't upgrade to Windows Phone 7, released in 2010. Windows Phone 7 users couldn't upgrade to Windows Phone 8, released in 2012. And many Windows Phone 8 users couldn't upgrade to Windows 10 Mobile. This destroyed developer and user trust in the platform. Fact 51. Surface RT couldn't run traditional Windows apps. When Microsoft released the Surface RT tablet in 2012, it ran Windows RT, a version of Windows that only supported apps from the Microsoft Store. The device's inability to run traditional Windows applications confused buyers and deterred developers. Surface RT was discontinued in 2013, and Microsoft took a $900 million write-down on unsold inventory. Fact 52. Microsoft Band lasted only 2 years. The Microsoft Band fitness tracker, launched in 2014, was discontinued in 2016. Despite innovative health tracking capabilities, including heart rate monitoring and GPS tracking, the Band suffered from an awkward and uncomfortable design. Along with quality and durability issues, it couldn't gain significant market share against established competitors like Fitbit and Apple Watch. Chapter 7. The Antitrust Battle. Fact 53. The FTC started investigating in the early 1990s. Fact 38. The Federal Trade Commission, FTC, launched an investigation of Microsoft in the early 1990s to determine whether the company was trying to create a monopoly. The commissioners deadlocked with a 2-2 vote in 1993 and closed the investigation, but the Department of Justice, DOJ, led by Janet Reno, opened its own investigation later that year. Fact 54. Antitrust charges filed on May 18, 1998. On May 18, 1998, the Department of Justice and the attorneys general of 20 different states filed antitrust charges against Microsoft. The suit aimed to determine whether Microsoft's bundling of additional programs into its operating system constituted monopolistic actions. The case centered on Microsoft's practice of bundling Internet Explorer with Windows and making it difficult to install or use competing browsers. Fact 55. Microsoft was accused of cutting Netscape's air supply. During the trial, testimony revealed that a Microsoft executive allegedly told Intel that Microsoft would cut Netscape air supply, and that by giving away free browsers, Microsoft would strangle. Paul Maritz, the Microsoft executive accused of making that remark, Netscape's revenue streams denied having said it. Nonetheless, the phrase became emblematic of Microsoft's aggressive competitive tactics. Fact 56. Judge Jackson ordered Microsoft split in two. Judge Thomas Penfield Jackson ruled that Microsoft violated parts of the Sherman Antitrust Act. His judgment on April 3, 2000, found that Microsoft had engaged in monopolization, attempted monopolization, and tying in violation of Sections 1 and 2 of the Sherman Antitrust Act. Jackson called for Microsoft to be divided into two separate entities, one for the operating system and another for software applications. Fact 57. The breakup order was overturned on appeal. The order to split Microsoft was ultimately overturned on appeal in 2001 by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit. By that time, a new administration had taken office, leading to a shift in the DOJ's priorities. The two parties reached a settlement in which Microsoft agreed to modify some of its business practices, but remained intact as a single company. Fact 58. The case lasted over 3.5 years. The Microsoft antitrust case spanned more than 3.5 years, from the initial charges in May 1998 to the final settlement in 2001. The proceedings included extensive testimony, videotaped testimony, depositions of Bill Gates that were widely criticized for his evasive answers, and mountains of internal Microsoft documents revealed during discovery. Fact 59. The trial featured edited video evidence. One controversial moment in the trial involved Microsoft presenting a video demonstration that appeared to show Windows performance degrading when Internet Explorer was removed. However, it was revealed that the video had been edited and didn't accurately represent the system's actual behavior. This damaged Microsoft's credibility in the courtroom. Fact 60. Microsoft's aggressive tactics were exposed. The trial revealed numerous instances of Microsoft's aggressive competitive practices. Internal emails and documents showed efforts to secure exclusive agreements with computer manufacturers to ensure Internet Explorer was pre-installed while keeping rival browsers off desktops. The case exposed a side of Microsoft's business practices that many found troubling. Chapter 8. Browser Wars and Internet Explorer. Fact 61. Internet Explorer was based on Spyglass Mosaic. Internet Explorer 1.0, released in July 1995, was derived from Spyglass Mosaic. The original Mosaic came from the National Center for Supercomputing Applications, NCSA, but NCSA relied on Spyglass as its commercial licensing partner. Microsoft licensed the Spyglass Mosaic browser and used it as the foundation for Internet Explorer. Fact 62. Microsoft paid Spyglass quarterly fees. The license to Microsoft provided Spyglass, and thus NCSA, with a quarterly fee, plus a percentage of Microsoft's revenues for the software. This revenue-sharing arrangement would become controversial when Microsoft decided to give Internet Explorer away for free with Windows, essentially eliminating the revenue that Spyglass would receive a percentage of. Fact 63. IE peaked at 95% market share. At its height in 2002-2003, Internet Explorer commanded an astonishing 95% of the browser market. This near monopoly resulted from IE being bundled with Windows and Microsoft's aggressive tactics in the browser wars against Netscape. However, this dominance would eventually erode with the rise of Firefox, Chrome, and other browsers. Fact 64. IE6 was released before Windows XP. Internet Explorer 6.0 was released on August 27, 2001, a few months before Windows XP launched. IE6 included DHTML enhancements, content-restricted inline frames, and partial support for CSS Level 1, DOM Level 1, and SMIL 2.0. The MSXML engine was updated to version 3.0. Despite its age, IE6 remained in use for many years, particularly in enterprise environments. Fact 65. IE development was halted as standalone. In a May 7, 2003, Microsoft Online Chat, Brian Countryman, Internet Explorer Program Manager, declared that IE would cease to be distributed separately from the Windows operating system. IE6 was to be the last standalone version. Instead, Internet Explorer would be continued as part of the evolution of the operating system itself, with updates coming bundled in OS upgrades. Fact 66. Microsoft Edge replaced Internet Explorer. Edge was initially built with Microsoft's proprietary Edge HTML browser engine and Chakra JavaScript engine. In 2020, Microsoft released a Chromium-based version of Edge, rebuilt from the ground up using Google's Chromium engine for better performance and compatibility. Fact 67. The browser wars changed the Internet. The competition between Internet Explorer and Netscape Navigator in the 1990s fundamentally shaped the development of the Internet. While Microsoft's tactics were controversial and eventually deemed illegal, the browser wars accelerated innovation in web technologies, pushed the development of web standards, and made the Internet more accessible to mainstream users. Part 3. Gaming and New Frontiers, 2000 to 2014. Chapter 9. The Xbox Revolution. Fact 68. Xbox started with 4 DirectX engineers. In 1998, 4 engineers from Microsoft's DirectX team, Kevin Backus, Seamus Blackley, Ted Hayes, and DirectX team leader Otto Burkus, began discussing ideas for a new gaming console that would run Microsoft's DirectX technology. This small group's vision would eventually become the Xbox, Microsoft's entry into the console gaming market. Fact 69. The code name was DirectX Box. The project was originally called the DirectX Box because it was designed to run games using Microsoft's DirectX graphics technology. The name was later shortened to Xbox. This naming reflected the console's PC-like architecture and its ability to run games developed with familiar PC tools. Fact 70. Bill Gates was initially skeptical. Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates was initially intrigued, but posed a major hurdle for the Xbox project. It took months of effort to convince a skeptical Gates to agree to fund the Xbox project. The team of engineers had already started work before it was even formally presented to Gates, their determination to make the project happen. Fact 71. The name Coffin Box emerged. During early development, the name Coffin Box became associated with the Xbox project because there were fears the project would end careers at Microsoft. The prospect of Microsoft producing its own hardware, rather than just working with a third-party manufacturer, made it a far more costly and risky operation than initially envisioned. Fact 72. Xbox launched November 15, 2001. The original Xbox was unveiled on November 15, 2001 in North America. It was the first gaming console produced by an American company since the Atari Jaguar ceased operations in 1996. With a built-in hard drive and Ethernet port, the Xbox was technologically advanced for its time. Fact 73. Microsoft lost $4 billion on Xbox by 2005. Despite popular titles such as Halo Combat Evolved and Halo 2, Microsoft reported in 2005 that it had thus far lost $4 billion from the Xbox enterprise. The console business required massive upfront investment in hardware development and marketing, with profits coming slowly from game sales over time. Microsoft was willing to absorb these losses to establish itself in gaming. Fact 74. Microsoft acquired Bungie in June 2000. Microsoft acquired Bungie Studios, the creator of Halo, in June 2000, shortly after Bungie announced Halo Combat Evolved. With Microsoft's acquisition, Halo switched from being a release for personal computers to being an Xbox exclusive. This acquisition proved crucial, as Halo became the flagship launch title that helped drive Xbox sales. Fact 75. Xbox 360 suffered the Red Ring of Death. The Xbox 360, launched in 2005, became infamous for the Red Ring of Death, overheating problems that caused system failures. The issue was so widespread that Microsoft released the Xbox 360S in June 2010 with a slimmer design aimed specifically at addressing these hardware failures. The defect rates damaged Microsoft's reputation and cost the company billions in repairs and replacements. Fact 76. Xbox Kinect sold 24 million units. The Kinect motion sensing device for Xbox 360, launched in 2010, was a major innovation that eliminated the need for handheld controller. Using cameras and infrared sensors, Kinect could track players' body movements and gestures in three-dimensional space. The device sold approximately 24 million units in its first 2 years, and held the Guinness World Record for fastest-selling consumer electronics device. Fact 77. Kinect was initially required for Xbox One. When Microsoft unveiled the Xbox One in 2013, it announced that the second-generation Kinect would be a required component. The console would not function without it. This requirement proved controversial due to privacy concerns about having an always-on camera and microphone. Microsoft eventually backtracked and made Kinect optional, but the initial decision damaged Xbox One's launch against the PlayStation 4. Fact 78. Microsoft acquired Activision Blizzard for $68.7 billion. In 2023, Microsoft completed its acquisition of Activision Blizzard for $68.7 billion. This massive deal brought franchises like Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, Overwatch, and Candy Crush under Microsoft's control. It was one of the largest acquisitions in gaming history and positioned Microsoft as a dominant force in the industry. Chapter 10. Leadership Transitions. Fact 79. Steve Ballmer became CEO in January 2000. Steve Ballmer was officially named CEO on January 13, 2000, succeeding Bill Gates. Gates remained chairman of the board and retained control of the technological vision as chief software architect. As CEO, Ballmer handled company finances and daily operations, continued to influence product strategy. Fact 80. Ballmer was known for high-energy presentations. Steve Ballmer became famous for his high-energy, passionate presentation style. His enthusiastic keynotes and events, including his famous "Developers, Developers, Developers" chant, became legendary in the tech industry. While sometimes mocked, Ballmer's intensity reflected his genuine passion for Microsoft and its products. Fact 81. Revenue tripled under Ballmer. During Steve Ballmer's 14-year tenure as CEO, Microsoft's revenue tripled. He oversaw major initiatives, including the launch of the Xbox, expansion into cloud computing with Azure, and the acquisition of Skype. Despite criticism for missing opportunities in mobile and search, Ballmer's financial results showed significant growth. Fact 82. Satya Nadella became CEO on February 4, 2014. Satya Nadella was appointed CEO of Microsoft on February 4, 2014, succeeding Steve Ballmer. Nadella had joined Microsoft in 1992 and held leadership roles in both enterprise and cloud services before becoming CEO. His appointment marked a new era for Microsoft, with a focus on cloud computing and cultural transformation. Fact 83. Nadella changed culture from know-it-all to learn-it-all. One of Satya Nadella's most significant changes was transforming Microsoft's culture from a know-it-all mindset to a learn-it-all mindset. He encouraged employees to embrace failures as learning opportunities rather than setbacks. This cultural shift fostered a more open and innovative environment throughout the company. Fact 84. Microsoft eliminated forced stack ranking. Under Nadella's leadership, Microsoft eliminated the controversial forced stack ranking system for employee evaluations. The company shifted from forced ratings to no ratings and changed focus from individual actions and results to overall impact. This move was part of the broader cultural transformation, emphasizing collaboration over internal competition. Fact 85. Nadella emphasized empathy in leadership. Satya Nadella made empathy a core principle of his leadership philosophy. He believed that understanding and addressing the needs of both employees and customers was crucial for success. This empathetic approach helped break down silos within Microsoft and promote cross-functional collaboration, a stark contrast to the previously competitive internal culture. Fact 86. Microsoft's market cap exceeded $3 trillion under Nadella. Under Satya Nadella's leadership, Microsoft's market capitalization soared, eventually exceeding $3 trillion and making it one of the world's most valuable companies. This remarkable growth was driven by success in cloud computing, Azure, the shift to subscription-based Office 365, strategic acquisitions, and renewed focus on developer tools and AI partnerships like the one with OpenAI. Part 4. Modern Microsoft, 2014-present. Chapter 11. Cloud Computing and Azure. Fact 87. Windows Azure was announced on October 28, 2008. Microsoft first unveiled its plans for a cloud computing service called Windows Azure at the Professional Developers Conference, PDC, on October 28, 2008. The announcement marked Microsoft's entry into the rapidly developing cloud computing industry. Software architect at the time made the historic announcement. Fact 88. Azure was codenamed Red Dog. Ray Ozzie, Microsoft's chief during its early development from 2008 to 2011, the Windows Azure project was internally codenamed Red Dog. The platform was initially created as a Windows NT extension tailored specifically for the cloud. It was developed as a platform-as-a-service (PaaS) solution, competing with Amazon EC2 and Google App Engine. Fact 89. Azure became generally available February 1, 2010. After preview versions in 2009, Windows Azure became commercially available on February 1, 2010. This launch represented a fundamental transformation in Microsoft's business, shifting from selling packaged software to offering services over networks. The transition required Microsoft to rebuild much of its technical infrastructure and business model. Fact 90. Windows Azure was renamed to Microsoft Azure. In 2014, Microsoft renamed Windows Azure to Microsoft Azure to emphasize that the platform has gone from packaged software to Microsoft Azure. Supported multiple operating systems, not just Windows. This rebranding reflected Microsoft's embrace of Linux and open-source technologies under new leadership. The change signaled a major strategic shift toward cross-platform support. Fact 91. Microsoft hired Kubernetes co-founder Brendan Burns. In 2016, Microsoft recruited Brendan Burns, a co-founder of Kubernetes and a lead engineer at Google, to lead Azure's container strategy. This hire resulted in the launch of Azure Kubernetes Service, AKS, a managed Kubernetes service. Microsoft also made significant contributions to open-source container projects, including Virtual Kubelet, Kita, Dapr, and support for Windows containers. Fact 92. Azure became the second-largest cloud provider. Although Microsoft was late to enter cloud computing, behind Amazon Web Services, AWS, Azure eventually became the second-largest cloud platform globally. Under Satya Nadella's leadership, Microsoft successfully transformed from a Windows-first company to a cloud-first company. Azure now competes directly with AWS and Google Cloud Platform for enterprise customers worldwide. Fact 93. Microsoft introduced Azure Arc for hybrid cloud. In response to enterprises wanting hybrid cloud solutions, Microsoft introduced Azure Arc. This service enables customers to manage virtual machines, physical servers, and workloads governed by Kubernetes from a unified control plane. Unlike competing solutions from AWS, Google, VMware, and IBM, Azure Arc levels the playing field between legacy on-premises workloads and modern cloud-native applications. Chapter 12. Major acquisitions. Fact 94. Skype was acquired for $8.5 billion. On May 10, 2011, Microsoft announced its acquisition of Skype Technologies for $8.5 billion. At the time, this was Microsoft's largest acquisition ever, with a value 32 times larger than Skype's operating profits. The deal was massive. Skype became a division within Microsoft, and its former CEO, Tony Bates, became the division's first president. Fact 95. LinkedIn was Microsoft's largest acquisition at $26.2 billion. On June 13, 2016, Microsoft announced plans to acquire the professional networking site LinkedIn for $26.2 billion. The acquisition was completed on December 8, 2016. LinkedIn was kept as a distinct brand with its own CEO, Jeff Weiner, who reported to Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. Revenue from LinkedIn grew 37% year-over-year by 2018. Fact 96. GitHub was acquired for $7.5 billion on June 4, 2018. Microsoft acquired the popular code repository platform, GitHub, for $7.5 billion. The acquisition was Microsoft's third largest and raised some concerns among developers wary of Microsoft's past antagonism toward open source. However, GitHub has maintained its independence and continued to grow under Microsoft's ownership. Fact 97. Minecraft Mojang was purchased for $2.5 billion. In September 2014, Microsoft purchased Mojang, the creator of the wildly popular game Minecraft, for $2.5 billion. Minecraft's devoted young player base fit Microsoft's strategy. The game helped drive Xbox sales and brought children into Microsoft's digital ecosystem. Minecraft has maintained its position as one of the most popular games globally since the acquisition. Fact 98. Microsoft invested $150 million to save Apple in 1997. In one of tech history's most ironic moments, Microsoft saved rival Apple from almost certain bankruptcy by making a $150 million investment in 1997. Steve Jobs announced the investment on stage at his first appearance as Apple CEO, to boos from the audience. The investment helped Apple survive until its turnaround with products like the iMac, iPod, and eventually iPhone. Microsoft and Apple had actually worked together for years on software for the first Macintosh, before Windows sparked their famous rivalry. Fact 99. The failed Yahoo bid was over $44 billion. In 2008, Microsoft attempted to acquire Yahoo for more than $44 billion. The bid was ultimately unsuccessful, with Yahoo rejecting Microsoft's offers. In retrospect, the failed acquisition may have been fortunate for Microsoft, as Yahoo continued to decline while Microsoft focused on developing its own search engine, Bing, and building Azure. Fact 100. ZeniMax Media was acquired for $7.5 billion. On September 21, 2020, Microsoft announced its intent to acquire ZeniMax Media and all its subsidiaries for $7.5 billion. The acquisition, completed on March 9, 2021, brought major game franchises like The Elder Scrolls, Fallout, Doom, and Wolfenstein under Microsoft's control. This purchase strengthened Xbox's game lineup and Microsoft's Game Pass subscription service. These 100 hidden facts reveal a Microsoft far more complex, human, and interesting than the standard corporate narrative suggests. From the Altair Basic Interpreter, developed without an Altair computer, to the $50,000 purchase of QDOS that became worth billions, to the cultural transformation from know-it-all to learn-it-all, Microsoft's history is filled with brilliant decisions, costly mistakes, fierce competition, and constant adaptation. Conclusion: the legacy of hidden facts. The company that began in Albuquerque with 2 young programmers has become one of the world's most valuable and influential corporations. Along the way, Microsoft shaped personal computing, established the PC software industry, dominated productivity software, fought epic legal battles, revolutionized console gaming, missed the mobile revolution, and ultimately transformed itself into a cloud computing powerhouse. Some of these facts highlight Microsoft's ingenuity, like the non-exclusive clause in the IBM contract that changed technology history. Others reveal embarrassing failures, like Microsoft Bob, Clippy, and the Zune. Still others show the company's willingness to make bold bets, From the Xbox's $4 billion in early losses to the $68.7 billion Activision acquisition. Understanding these hidden details provides crucial context for Microsoft's current position as a leader in cloud computing, artificial intelligence, gaming, and productivity software. The company's ability to learn from failures, adapt to changing markets, and reinvent itself under new leadership demonstrates remarkable institutional resilience. As Microsoft continues to evolve, partnering with OpenAI on generative AI, expanding Azure's capabilities, growing its gaming empire, and pushing into new frontiers, these historical facts serve as important reminders. They show that even the most successful companies face setbacks, that bold strategic decisions can reshape entire industries, and that corporate culture and leadership matter immensely. The story of Microsoft is ultimately a human story of ambitious founders, brilliant engineers, tough negotiations, spectacular failures, fierce competition, and continuous transformation. These 100 hidden facts illuminate that story in ways that standard histories often miss, revealing the fascinating details that made Microsoft what it is today, and offering lessons for understanding where it might go tomorrow.